Oliver Reed had walked past that alley 100 times, but never like this. Never with a pair of tiny wheels creaking alongside his polished shoes. Never with silence so thick it could suffocate him. His 8-year-old daughter Sophia sat quietly in her wheelchair, her legs still and wrapped in a wear-upon blue blanket. Her blonde hair fell over her cheeks, eyes lowered to the pavement as though she had given up waiting for miracles. Oliver hadn't. Not really. But hope had become a cruel word in his world. Since the accident 2 years ago, every doctor, therapist, and miracle worker had taken his money and left him with the same answer. Permanent spinal damage. She may live a long life, they'd say gently, but she'll never walk again. His money could move mountains but not nerves. That's when he heard the voice. "Sir," the boy said from the alley corner, "I know how to make your daughter walk again." Oliver stopped, one hand still on Sophia's wheelchair handle. He turned slowly, expecting to see a scam artist or worse. But what he saw instead was a barefoot child. The boy couldn't have been older than Sophia. He was dark-skinned, skinny, barefoot and bundled in an oversized coat. His hands were caked in dirt and one eye looked slightly bruised. But his voice was steady. "What did you say?" Oliver asked. "I said I can help your daughter," the boy repeated. Oliver frowned. "Is this some kind of game? Who put you up to this?" "No one," the boy said. "My name's Marcus. I live behind the train station. I saw you pushing her here yesterday. I waited here today because I knew you'd come." Oliver squinted. "You've been watching us?" "Yes, but not in a creepy way. I see lots of people walk by." But she looked sad, like she used to run but her legs forgot. Sophia's head turned slightly. That was more than anyone had said about her since last week. "I've taken her to the best hospitals in the world," Oliver said firmly. "Neurologists, surgeons, even holistic charlatans who claim to move energy with their fingers. There's nothing you can do." "But you haven't taken her to my grandmother," Marcus said. "She helped me when no one else would." "You're 8. I'm 9 next month." Oliver almost laughed. Marcus stepped closer. "She doesn't take money, only trust. And she never asks anyone to believe, only to try." Sophia looked up at her father. "Please, can we go?" Oliver hesitated. The words no and absolutely not spun in his head. But so did Sophia's voice, the way it had cracked weeks ago when she whispered, "I hate being this way." He knelt next to her. "If anything feels wrong, we leave. Got it?" She nodded. Marcus smiled, turned, and walked. They followed. The path behind the city was unfamiliar. Tangles of weeds, rusted fences, graffiti on broken brick walls. Sophia winced every time her wheelchair bumped. Oliver almost turned back twice, but Marcus kept glancing over his shoulder, reassuring with a calm beyond his years. They reached the edge of a wooded trail. It didn't look like it led anywhere. "Through here," Marcus said. Oliver sighed. "You do know that if anything happens to my daughter, she'll be fine," Marcus said. "She'll be more than fine." At the end of the trail stood a small cabin built from worn timber and moss. It looked like it belonged in a fairy tale. An old woman stepped onto the porch. Her hair was long and silver, braided with tiny pieces of bark and thread. Her eyes were green, striking and ageless. "I was wondering when you'd bring them," she said to Marcus. Marcus nodded. He didn't believe, but she did. Sophia smiled faintly. The woman knelt before her. "Child, may I touch your knees?" Sophia looked at her father, who hesitated then nodded. The woman placed her hands gently over Sophia's legs. Her eyes fluttered closed and she began to hum a sound soft and low like wind through trees. Sophia flinched. "I felt that," she whispered. Oliver stepped forward. "Felt what?" "A tingle in my toes." The woman opened her eyes. "Her spine is not dead, just frozen, locked in grief. The body obeys the heart more than the brain." "That's not medical science," Oliver muttered. "No," the woman said, "but science doesn't hold your daughter's tears every night." Marcus stepped forward. "Can she try standing?" The woman looked at Sophia. "Only if she wants to." Sophia nodded. The woman moved the wheelchair back and helped her to her feet. Sophia's legs trembled. Oliver stepped forward in panic, but the woman held up a hand. Sophia's right foot moved, then her left. She stood, wobbly like a deer, but she stood. Oliver fell to his knees. "Sophia." Sophia turned to him, smiling through tears. "Daddy, I'm standing." Oliver couldn't breathe. He crawled to her feet and held her tightly, afraid she'd fall or worse vanish. Marcus stood back, quiet. Oliver turned to him, stunned. "Who are you?" Marcus shrugged. "Just a boy who believed someone could be whole again." Oliver reached into his pocket. I'll pay you anything. Name your price. Marcus shook his head. I don't need money. I just needed someone to listen. As the sun peeked through the clouds, Sophia walked 3 steps toward her father and the world she thought she had lost. Sophia took one more shaky step forward. Oliver watched, stunned, his hands half raised in the air, unsure whether to catch her or let her walk. She was trembling, yes, and tears spilled freely down her cheeks. But there was no mistaking the fact she was walking. She took a second step, then a third, then fell. Oliver lunged, catching her gently before she hit the ground. I've got you, he whispered, his voice cracking. I've got you. Sophia clung to him, sobbing. I felt my legs, Daddy. I really felt them. You did, sweetheart, he said. You did. The old woman stood silently behind them, her hands folded in front of her like she had seen this before many times. There was no showmanship, no applause, just peace. Marcus crouched nearby, not smiling, not celebrating, just watching. Oliver turned to him again, this time kneeling down to his level. I need to know, he said. How did you know? How did you do that? Marcus looked down at the dirt. I didn't. I just remembered. Remembered what? My grandma. She wasn't a doctor, but she knew people. The way they breathe, how they break. She said, not all pain is in bones. Some of it lives in silence. Some of it hides where X-rays can't see. Oliver stared, moved beyond words. Marcus shifted. I used to walk funny. My foot was bent since birth. Kids laughed. My mom left when I was 4. Grandma was all I had. One day she just said it was time. She placed her hand on my foot, whispered things in a language I don't know, and told me to stand. I did. I never fell again. Sophia blinked at him. She healed you? She reminded me I wasn't broken, Marcus replied. Oliver nodded slowly. Where is she now? Marcus's eyes fell. Gone a year ago. I tried to go into the system, but I ran. They said she was a fraud, that I was making it all up. So I started helping people myself. Only the ones who asked, the ones who really believed. He wiped his nose with his sleeve. Sometimes I fail, but sometimes I don't. Oliver stood and faced the old woman. Who are you? She smiled. Just someone who listens. Marcus does the rest. But this is something else. No, she said. This is the part of humanity most people forgot. That healing doesn't always need pills or wires or surgeries. It sometimes just needs presence. Oliver looked at Sophia. She was now on her feet again, holding the back of the wheelchair, testing her balance. Her fingers trembled, but her eyes were lit with something fierce. Hope. I want to take you with us, Oliver said to Marcus. We have doctors, specialists, therapists. I can set you up, give you a future. But Marcus shook his head gently. My place is here, on the street, in the forgotten corners. That's where the hurt lives. That's where people like me are needed. Oliver hesitated. What if I want to help you? You already did. You listened. Most don't. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a card. It was creased and damp from rain, but legible. If you ever need me, Oliver said, for anything, food, shelter, education, you call this number. My assistant will answer, day or night. Marcus took the card, studied it for a moment, then carefully folded it and tucked it into the inside lining of his coat. Sophia turned to him. Will I see you again? Marcus smiled. If you ever forget how to believe, I'll probably be nearby. She grinned, limped forward and wrapped her arms around him. It was the first time anyone had hugged him in over a year. He closed his eyes and hugged her back. A week later, Sophia stood in front of her school. A crowd of students watching in awe as she walked across the stage, still slow, still with care, but on her own. No wheelchair, no braces. The reporters asked, what was the turning point? Sophia simply smiled and said, a boy who believed I could. That same morning, in an alley 3 districts away, Marcus sat with a new girl who had lost her voice after trauma. He didn't ask for her story. He didn't offer her food. He simply sat beside her and hummed the same tune his grandmother once sang. Because healing doesn't always start with medicine. Sometimes it begins with someone who refuses to walk away. 2 months passed. Sophia had grown stronger with each day, her steps more confident, her smile wider. The doctors called it spontaneous neurological recovery, a miracle they couldn't explain, but documented extensively in medical journals. Oliver had ordered his team of lawyers to stop investigating Marcus and the old woman. Some mysteries, he realized, were meant to remain unsolved. On a crisp autumn morning, Oliver found himself walking through that same alley again, this time alone. He wasn't sure why he'd come, perhaps to relive the memory, or perhaps because something in him had changed. A businessman who once measured everything in profit margins now found himself searching for something that couldn't be quantified. The alley looked different in daylight, less menacing, more worn. Trash collected in corners, and graffiti told stories of urban dreams. Oliver scanned the shadows, not knowing what he was looking for until he heard a soft cough. Marcus sat huddled against a brick wall, his oversized coat pulled tight around his small frame. His face looked thinner, paler than before. Beside him was a cardboard sign that read simply, "Not asking for money, just time." "Marcus," Oliver said, approaching slowly. The boy looked up, his eyes brightening with recognition. "Mr. Reed, is Sophia okay?" Oliver knelt down. "She's more than okay. She's running now. Her doctors can't explain it." A faint smile crossed Marcus's face. "Good, you're sick," Oliver observed, noticing the sheen of sweat on the boy's forehead despite the cool air. "Just a cold," Marcus shrugged, but his body betrayed him with a violent cough. Oliver reached out, placing a hand on Marcus's forehead. "You're burning up. Where's the old woman? Your grandmother's friend?" Marcus's eyes lowered. "She moved on, said her work here was done, and left you alone? In this condition? She doesn't stay anywhere long. That's not how it works. She finds people like me, teaches us, then finds the next one who needs her." Oliver sat back on his heels, studying the boy. "You haven't used my card. Didn't need to? You're living on the streets with pneumonia, and you didn't need help?" Marcus looked up, his eyes suddenly fierce despite his weakness. "I'm not the only one who needs help, Mr. Reed. There are others. So many others." Oliver glanced around the empty alley. "I don't see anyone else here. That's the problem," Marcus whispered. "Most people don't." Something in Oliver shifted. He remembered how it felt watching Sophia take those first steps, not just joy, but something deeper, a reconnection to wonder, to possibility. "Come with me," Oliver said, offering his hand. "Just for today. Let me get you some medicine, a hot meal." Marcus hesitated. "I have someone to help this afternoon, a veteran who lost his leg. He sits by the fountain in the park. He doesn't think anyone sees him anymore. We'll go together," Oliver promised, "after you've had antibiotics and food." Marcus studied him for a long moment, then nodded, taking Oliver's hand. At Oliver's penthouse, Marcus stood awkwardly in the vast living room, looking small against the floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the city below. Sophia burst in from her therapy session, her face lighting up at the sight of him. "Marcus," she squealed, actually running to hug him. "You came." Marcus smiled weakly, trying not to cough on her. "Just visiting." The family doctor arrived, diagnosed severe bronchitis bordering on pneumonia, and prescribed antibiotics and rest. Oliver watched as Marcus reluctantly swallowed the pills, eyeing them suspiciously. "Medicine helps too," Oliver said gently. "Sometimes," Marcus conceded, "but it doesn't fix everything." After a hot shower and clean clothes that still hung too large on his frame, Marcus sat at the dining table, picking at a plate of food. Sophia chatted excitedly about her progress, demonstrating little hops and turns. "I'm going to dance in the school recital," she announced proudly. "I knew you would," Marcus said, and there was no surprise in his voice, only quiet certainty. Oliver watched them from the doorway, something tugging at his conscience. This boy had given Sophia her life back, yet he lived in alleys, sick and alone. Later, when Sophia had gone to her piano lesson, Oliver sat across from Marcus in the living room. "I want to help you," he said directly. "Not just today, permanently." Marcus looked out the window at the city below. "You can't adopt me, if that's what you're thinking. The system would never allow it. I don't exist in their records anymore. I have lawyers who can." "No," Marcus interrupted. "That's not my path." Oliver leaned forward. "What is your path, then? To die of exposure in an alley? To help people who can't be helped any other way? And you can't do that with a roof over your head? With an education? With resources?" Marcus turned to him, his eyes suddenly ancient in his young face. "What I do, it changes when it becomes a system. It becomes something else, something less." Oliver ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "So I'm just supposed to let you go back to the streets, knowing you're out there?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "But maybe there's another way." "I'm listening." "The abandoned building 3 blocks from where you found me. The red brick one with the broken windows. People sleep there when it rains. They hide there when they're afraid. But it's cold and it's falling apart. Oliver nodded slowly. You want me to fix it up, not turn it into condos, Marcus clarified. Just make it safe, warm, a place where people can find shelter without questions, without forms, without having to be someone's idea of deserving. A shelter without being a shelter, Oliver mused. And maybe, Marcus hesitated, maybe a small room in the back, for me, so I can be there when people need me. Oliver studied him. You're 9 years old. Almost 10, Marcus corrected with the ghost of a smile. And I'm older than I look. That evening, after Marcus had fallen asleep on the couch despite insisting he needed to return to the alley, Oliver made phone calls to his property development team, to his lawyers, to a contractor who owed him a favor. Sophia found him on the balcony, staring out at the city lights. Is Marcus staying? She asked, leaning against him. Not exactly, Oliver replied, but I think we're going to see a lot more of him. Good, Sophia said. He needs us to, you know. Oliver looked down at his daughter in surprise. What makes you say that? Because everyone needs someone to believe in them, she said simply. Even healers. 3 weeks later, the building was transformed. Not gentrified. Oliver had been careful about that, but reinforced, with new windows, proper heating, clean bathrooms, and a kitchen. No sign announced its purpose. No paperwork was required to enter. Word simply spread on the streets. There was a place now, a safe place. And in the back room, Marcus had a bed, books, and a window that caught the morning sun. He didn't always sleep there. Sometimes the call to help someone took him elsewhere for days. But he always returned. Oliver established a trust to maintain the building, with strict instructions that it remain unofficial, under the radar. He visited weekly, sometimes with Sophia, sometimes alone. He began to know the faces of the regulars veteran with one leg, the woman who spoke to angels, the teenager who'd run from abuse. And sometimes, when he arrived, he would find Marcus sitting quietly with someone, not speaking, just present. Sometimes he would see the boy place a hand on a shoulder, a knee, a forehead. Not every time was there a miracle like Sophia's, but something always changed, a spark of hope, a moment of being truly seen. 6 months after finding Marcus in the alley, Oliver stood in the doorway of the common room, watching as the boy taught Sophia how to sit with an elderly man whose hands wouldn't stop shaking. You don't have to fix him, Marcus was explaining gently. Just be with him in his trembling. Sophia nodded seriously, her small hand resting lightly on the man's weathered one. The man looked up, tears in his eyes, not because his tremors had stopped, but because for the first time in years, someone had touched him without flinching away. Oliver understood then what the old woman had meant. Healing wasn't always about cure. Sometimes it was simply about presence and courage to witness another's pain without turning away. As he watched his daughter learning this profound lesson, Oliver felt something in himself healing to the driven businessman who had spent a lifetime believing everything could be bought, fixed, or controlled, now understanding that the most powerful force wasn't in his wealth or influence, but in the simple act of being present. Marcus caught his eye from across the room and gave a small nod, as if to say, now you see. And Oliver did. For the first time in his life, he truly did.